How to review The Gray Man? Well, by wearing a gray shirt, of course. This one in particular I got after the Chicago Cubs won the World Series in 2016. I remember that day so well. I got my braces off earlier that day, and later that week was the celebratory rally in downtown, which was nuts. Good times, good times. Wait, what was I talking about? What is up, everybody? Random Man here. I hope everyone out there is continuing to stay safe and be well during this unpredictable time, as I am here bringing you my review for The Gray Man. Based on the 2009 novel of the same name by Mark Greaney, the plot of this action thriller basically follows the CIA's most skilled mercenary, Court Gentry, aka Sierra 6, played by Ryan Gosling, who accidentally uncovers dark agency secrets and becomes the primary target hunted around the world by psychopathic former colleague Lloyd Hansen, played by Chris Evans, and international assassins. Going into this movie, I was looking forward to seeing it. This looked like an action thriller that would be up my alley with its cast and concept, and it was among the slate of films that Netflix announced that they would be releasing this year. This is also the latest directorial effort from Anthony and Joe Russo, aka the Russo Brothers, who are no stranger to action films, having helmed 4 of the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that, by most people's estimations, including myself, are among the best in the franchise, which include Captain America the Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. After Marvel, the Russo brothers have had their names attached to a bunch of other projects recently, including earlier this year with Everything Everywhere All at Once, one of my favorite movies of 2022 thus far, and they also directed last year's Cherry, which I admit I didn't want to bother with because it looked like a complete dumpster fire, and from a lot of people's thoughts in them seeing it, apparently it was the case. But with The Gray Man, it looked like they would be going back to what made them really known as filmmakers with the MCU. And though it does not drop on Netflix until this coming Friday, July 22nd, I was lucky enough to be able to see this thing in theaters during its initial limited release, where it is only currently available. Starting out with the cast and their performances, we have Ryan Gosling as Court Gentry / Sierra 6. Now, I'm surprised he doesn't do more action movies like this one, given how much of a high-profile talent he is. And he has dabbled in some action in the past with stuff like Blade Runner 2049, though that wasn't a straight-up action film like The Gray Man is. And he certainly is built to be someone like Court as an action hero. And here, playing the character, being this Black Ops mercenary who is really good at what he does, I thought he really fit with what he was trying to do, being very straight-laced but also capable of getting out of almost any situation. This helps out given that he has basically the entire CIA and other operatives after him across the globe, including Lloyd Hansen, played by Chris Evans, who leads this manhunt to go and get him. Now, he is no stranger to films like these. This is him reuniting with the Russo brothers after the 4 aforementioned MCU films he was in, and here he is basically the huge foil against Sierra 6, and he is also unlocking his inner Knives Out with how douchey of a character he is, with his slicked back hair, his mustache, and also just being that kind of character who is over the top in wanting to stop at nothing to get Sierra 6. The other big lead here is Ana de Armas as another operative who gets tangled up in this situation. She's also the only person that Sierra 6 trusts, or can trust here, in constantly saving him. Funny enough, she is reuniting with Ryan Gosling here after Blade Runner 2049, and she's also reuniting with Chris Evans after Knives Out. Here she is also continuing an action streak that she showed off in a minute but memorable turn in last year's No Time to Die. And between this, The Gray Man, and also being cast in the upcoming John Wick ballerina spinoff. Please make her a big action star. I mean, she's a huge talent already, and I cannot wait to see her portray Marilyn Monroe in the upcoming biopic Blonde. Aside from these three leads, there are a slew of other supporting players to talk about here, such as Billy Bob Thornton, who plays a higher up within the CIA who enlists Six to be the CIA's most deadly mercenary, as the movie begins with a conversation between the two of them and how Six is a convict, but he gets his prison sentence to be reduced if he's used at the CIA's disposal. Thornton's character is also a father figure to Six with his own abusive backstory, and there's also an integral character with his niece, played by Julia Butters, who stole the show in Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with her scenes opposite Leonardo DiCaprio. And here, I liked her as well, along with Thornton, and there's chemistry between herself and Ryan Gosling, Six, to where they have a bit of backstory together as well, and she becomes a primary target too. Others include Jessica Henwick, who plays another member of the CIA, who's mostly wasted to her just being someone who just yells at her higher-ups to stop doing all of this collateral damage just to get after one guy in Sierra 6. And I thought she was one of the better parts of last year's The Matrix Resurrections. And here, yeah, I like seeing her either way. Regé-Jean Page plays this other higher-up in the CIA who's basically another douchey type character, but yeah, I guess he fit the role with what he was trying to do. I've never seen Bridgerton, so I do not know how he is further as an actor. There's also Tamil superstar Dhanush, who plays an assassin who goes after our main heroes at one point, and he has a memorable fight scene in a hospital. And there's also Wagner Moura, who is almost unrecognizable here, playing somebody that Six goes to. Most people remember him as Pablo Escobar in the series Narcos, so it was cool to see him, as well as Alfre Woodard, as she adds on to the stacked cast among those that are playing members of the CIA here, who's also integral to the plot. So basically, with almost everyone in this cast here, I thought they were mostly well used, in particular the three leads. The writing of this film, which was done by Joe Russo, Christopher Marcus, and Stephen McFeely, sets it up as familiar territory to anyone who's seen a spy espionage film. As I mentioned earlier, the opening scene of this movie involves the characters played by Ryan Gosling and Billy Bob Thornton in how Gosling 6 gets an out of his prison sentence to be the CIA's disposable but deadly lackey. And after that, we are dropped into an initial set piece that takes place in Thailand, where Gosling 6 is trying to put out or take out a hit on somebody, but then discovers something that has the whole rest of the plot play out with a ton of betrayal, twists, and just other globe-trotting elements of any type of thriller like this one. And I do mean almost any kind of thriller, as one could describe this film as being part Jason Bourne mixed in with some Mission Impossible, and even throw in some elements of 007 as well, as he was name dropped in this movie. That gives this movie its blueprint and setup to get it going here, and it's a big strength for it, while also being a big weakness too, as easily the biggest knocks against this movie do include it being cliche and recycled to a lot of things that we have seen with these kinds of action thrillers. In the way it gets going, it does have a lot of action sprinkled into it, which brings up some of the directing by the Russo brothers, as, like I've said, they're no stranger to directing any kind of action, as they have done with some MCU films. And here, I think a lot of the action that is put in here does give off a lot of the energetically entertaining factor that this movie has. The movie literally moves at a brisk pace, in running at just about 2 hours in length, and in between all the action, we do get moments of exposition and explaining here and there with some of the characters' backstories. There's a notable flashback sequence involving Six and him getting to know the niece of Billy Bob Thornton's character, and that is where the attempted heart of this movie does lie, with her having a pacemaker and also being a key MacGuffin in having this all play out, on top of Six getting chased all around the world. And it basically shows how this film is cut from the same cloth as a lot of others that are inspiring it. I mean, I have not read the source material that this movie is based on, which is the first in a series of books, and makes this an attempted first entry for a franchise by Netflix. And speaking of that name, this is among the most expensive films ever made by them, with a budget of $200 million, which brings me to the technical elements of this film. And as I said earlier, I saw this film in theaters, and it mostly plays well on the big screen. Objectively, any movie should be seen on the biggest screen possible, and given the globe-trotting elements that the movie has, it fits in seeing the movie that way. As I mentioned earlier too, there's quite a bit of action sprinkled in between here, with how the Russo Brothers helmet, with a breakneck kinetic attitude, with how we see it all play out. It is mostly one big chase given the main target of Sierra 6, and I think that the most memorable sequence was the one in Prague, with how 6 is at one point handcuffed to a bench as the police are getting taken out by the assassins going after him, and then he eventually escapes onto a moving tram. And it shows off how this movie does not mess around with what it's trying to do in the way it is shot and edited. And it reminded me in many ways of Michael Bay's Ambulance from earlier this year, as there were a lot of drone shots. That is certainly going to be a trend that is going to continue for action movies in the near future, with how elaborate shots are able to be pulled off around streets and buildings. Also with the connection in the use of CGI. Again, this is an expensive movie, and there are a lot of moments that are heavy in the use of it. In particular, this one moment on a plane where 6 is escaping from it, and that honestly straight up looked bad, because it didn't look like any of it was done practically or in the air at all. It was spotty at times despite how pricey this movie is, but at least with the staging and the way the action was done, it was mostly done to how it's an expected standard for how a lot of moving parts are done in between, and just how frenetic this movie moves. But I think that is what most people are gonna expect with this kind of movie in how they watch it, also mostly at home on Netflix, with how it has a bunch of action, it has a high-profile cast, and it further backs up how Netflix really is trying to get further into the cinematic game here. And I think that for what it does, I thought it did a decent job in executing what it was trying to do. There are better movies like this out there, like the aforementioned other franchise examples, but if you're looking for something that would just basically pass the time at about 2 hours, but also has some moments in there that I do think some will pick out and just show how loud this movie is trying to go for in its scale, I think that it's something that I would cautiously recommend. My final verdict for The Gray Man is 3 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of The Gray Man, social media links in the description, subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.